Angela Lim. In tonight's top stories, Singapore and Vietnam explore boosting air connectivity as both sides look to upgrade ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Tensions rising between China and Japan over the release of Fukushima wastewater. Tokyo threatens to take Beijing to the World Trade Organization to reverse China's blanket ban on Japanese seafood. And it's the second last day of campaigning for the presidential election, and the issue of political independence continues to dominate the campaign. And also tonight, Sport Singapore will launch a new program to assist young athletes who have the potential for regional success progress to the next level of their sporting career. Greater air connectivity between Singapore and Vietnam is on the cards as the two countries look to upgrade their relationship to what's known as a comprehensive strategic partnership. It may cover extensive aspects of cooperation, such as trade, defence and education. And it's a partnership that Singapore has with only a few countries like Australia. Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong revealed this as he wraps up a trip to Vietnam. Shalin Seah reports from the capital, Hanoi.
Opening up the skies to allow flights to and fro from Singapore, Vietnam and a third country. That's one thing that the two countries may embark on under the upgraded partnership.
When you change the label, in fact, there's an enhancement of the substance. One of the areas which we are keen on and which we have suggested to the Vietnamese side is in the air services agreements. We need to find a substantive package so that when we go to a comprehensive strategic partnership, there's meaning in that new term.
The two countries already share extensive bilateral ties in various areas of cooperation, such as in the form of Vietnam-Singapore industrial parks. With the latest addition of 4 new parks, there are now 17. These are Singapore-invested parks strategically located in Vietnam that offer manufacturers smart energy solutions. They've already attracted more than $18 billion in investments, creating 300,000 jobs.
It's a project which has done well, which is making a significant contribution to the Vietnamese economy and to our bilateral relationship, because it's an icon of what is possible for the two countries to do together.
And while Vietnamese companies have not yet gone overseas on a big scale compared to Singapore firms, PM Lee says the opportunities in Vietnam also generate jobs for Singaporeans back home. He adds there's also much potential in its economy.
I wouldn't look at it as needing reciprocity in terms of Vietnamese investments needing to match our investments into Vietnam. I think in due course that will come. As their economy develops and reaches a higher level, their companies will want to go overseas. Just like the Chinese companies have now gone overseas in quite a significant way, and many of them are present in Singapore.
With other deals inked in trade and sustainability, these are just some of the many more possible collaborations we can look forward to in the future, with meetings between the Prime Ministers of both countries set to become an annual occasion from now on. Shalin Seah, CNA, Hanoi.
Singapore and Vietnam are also looking to foster closer ties between its people, with more collaboration in the area of education. Both sides signed a deal to boost student and teacher exchanges. During his visit, PM Lee joined his Vietnamese counterpart Pham Minh Chinh to meet youth leaders from both countries. They were taking part in an inaugural exchange program. It aims to promote greater appreciation for each other's national policies through visits and dialogue sessions.
I think there are many opportunities for both Singaporean and Vietnamese, because we both share the same love, the same thirst for knowledge, the same love for exchange.
I think Singapore and Vietnam have a lot in common. There's this thing of like the digital divide growing between like the haves and have-nots. There's also like the aging population that we share, and technology can be one of the tools that make it easier, to bridge the gap.
In other news, a growing dispute between China and Japan over the release of wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear plant. Japan has threatened to take China to the World Trade Organization to overturn Beijing's ban on all its seafood imports. At the same time, the Japanese embassy in China has raised concerns over the growing fallout of the water release. It confirmed that a brick was thrown at its embassy in Beijing and a Chinese national has been detained. Japan's foreign minister says the situation is extremely regrettable and worrying. Tokyo has also urged Beijing to take immediate measures to ensure the safety of its citizens. Beijing has hit back, saying it does protect foreigners in China and that this current situation is entirely Tokyo's doing. The effects are already palpable among the public. More than 200 harassment calls bearing China's country code have been reported by Japanese companies. On the other hand, the Chinese embassy in Tokyo also says it received nuisance calls from Japan.
日本政府无视国际社会的强烈质疑和反对，单方面强行启动福岛核事故污染水排海，引发各国人民强烈愤慨。这是导致当前局面的根源所在。
A new study is warning of the growing health hazards of rising air pollution in South Asia. The region is home to countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, and India, and is one of the world's most polluted areas. The University of Chicago's latest Air Quality Life Index report says that the persistent smog could cut life expectancy of an average person in the region by more than 5 years. The report describes air pollution as the greatest external threat to public health. People in Bangladesh, which is the world's most polluted country, stands to lose 6.8 years of life on average per person, while India's capital, New Delhi, has seen the average lifespan drop by more than 10 years. The country accounts for almost 60% of the world's increase in pollution in the past decade. Rapid industrialization and population growth are the main reasons for the rapidly declining air quality. Particulate pollution levels are now more than 50% higher than at the start of the century. Fine particulate matter is linked to lung and heart diseases, cancer, and stroke. But there's some hope. The study says the average lifespan could tick up by around 2 years if the world permanently cuts these pollutants to meet the World Health Organization's guidelines. Rescuers in eastern and central China are stepping up evacuation efforts as unrelenting downpours trigger flash floods. Emergency responders in Hubei and Jiangxi provinces had to wade through high waters to reach trapped residents. Many were evacuated on rubber dinghies and via rope lines. China has been gripped by weeks of rain and floods in an unusually wet summer. Last month, Typhoon Doksuri triggered record rains, with Beijing experiencing its heaviest rainfall in 140 years. China is now bracing for Saola, its 9th typhoon this year. Forecasters expect it to land in Guangdong province as early as Friday. And still ahead of news tonight, presidential candidate Mr. Tan Kin Lian adopting a new strategy for his campaign with just 2 days left to the hustings.
My Mitsubishi Electric StarMax aircon saves me energy and money. It's easy to clean and is so quiet.
The government for the presidential election, and one issue continues to dominate the campaign: the political impartiality of Singapore's highest office. In his latest remarks on the matter, candidate Mr. Ng Kok Song disputed views from his opponent, Mr. Tharman Shanmugaratnam, shared during yesterday's presidential forum on CNA. Mr. Tharman had said the elected presidency should be about individuals, and labelling candidates by their political affiliations is an extremely simplistic thinking. Mr. Ng disagreed, saying Singaporeans want a president who is free from the influences and agendas of political parties.
What I'm arguing for is not a matter of individuals. It's about whether the future of Singapore can be better safeguarded if we have a system, a good system of checks and balances with the elected president being a non-partisan person.
Mr. Ng was speaking to the media during a walkabout in Clementi. Mr. Ng adds that for an elected president to be effective as a check and balance to the government, the individual must stand above the politics of parliament and get the mandate directly from the people. He says a non-partisan candidate like himself will be most suited to be president, as he comes from neither end of the country's political spectrum. Referring to online chatter that people may want to spoil their votes on polling day, he says they may be doing it out of cynicism towards the current political scene.
The people of Singapore have won their right to vote. So our right to vote is something precious and should not be taken lightly. But please, don't spoil your vote. It will be a waste for you to do so.
In response, Mr. Tharman Shanmugaratnam urges his opponents to rise above the tactical fray and focus on what they can offer to Singaporeans as elected president, instead of trying to distinguish themselves by pointing at someone else and make sweeping statements and simple labels.
So we should move past these simple labels and these sweeping statements, position ourselves based on what we can contribute to Singapore, rather than politicize this debate endlessly. Let's rise above the tactical fray.
Mr. Tharman was speaking before his walkabout at Sengkang. He also says Mr. Ng misquoted his statement relating to the political impartiality of firms that are dependent on the government. He insists that he did not say that running a fund management company with state-owned firms as clients means Mr. Ng is not independent.
I said the opposite, actually. I said that it doesn't mean that you're not independent. The whole point I'm making is whether you're a member of a political party, or you've been a top civil servant, or you're running a company that depended on the government for its business, the whole issue is your character. We are appointing someone for a high leadership position, head of state. Look at the person's individual character, their contributions, their track record, their emotional commitment, and their rapport with people.
While his opponents continue their campaign trail, presidential candidate Tan Kin Lian did not make a public appearance today. But his team of about 20 volunteers was seen giving out these flyers across different locations, like MRT stations and residential areas. These include places such as Queenstown, Dover and Clementi. CNA understands that they're aiming to give out a total of 30,000 flyers today. They're also expected to continue distributing campaign materials tomorrow, including in Sengkang and Punggol. Mr. Tan has also shelved plans for an online rally on Wednesday. The country goes to the polls on 1st September. A police report has been filed after presidential candidate Mr. Ng Kok Song was subjected to verbal abuse while being followed by a man. Mr. Ng was at Clementi when the incident happened. Decked in a red shirt, a man on a bicycle approached. He began shouting vulgarities and making threatening gestures. Mr. Ng's team and his supporters tried to stop the man, but he did not stop. He eventually left the area, chanting the name of another presidential candidate. Police officers responded to a call for assistance from a member of the public and took statements from witnesses. Mr. Ng says he will continue with his walkabouts and activities tomorrow. The Elections Department will be issuing new poll cards to some residents in McPherson after feedback that they have been allocated polling stations further from where they live. ELD says it'll distribute the new poll cards directly to affected residents. This is so that it can explain the changes to residents in person. ELD also says that it has increased the number of polling stations to ensure shorter queues for voters, especially in estates with more seniors. And coming up on News Tonight, what are parents whose kids are enrolled in the school doing after a teacher was caught on video abusing students? Plus, how are heritage businesses in the Kampong Glam area adapting to challenges of rising rents and fewer customers?
Weather Report brought to you by Mitsubishi Electric.
You have regional aspirations across ASEAN and Greater China.
Athletes with potential for regional success will soon receive a boost through a new program that supports their journey to glory. Launched by Sports Singapore, it also aims to nurture these athletes to make the step up to the Asian and world arenas. Ernest Loy with more.
First, the Southeast Asian Games. That's what Sports Singapore is grooming young athletes for through the new Sports Excellent Potential program. The initiative provides these juniors with additional support, including allowances, training, sports science, and career development.
Athletes need time and space to develop and mature before they can reach into the SPECS scholarship domain. And therefore we have created this layer of support called the SPECS Potential to help our talented athletes be able to train more full-time, to compete more full-time with more support and funding so they can make a transition from athletes' performance at the SEA Games level into the SPECS scholarship.
Similar to the SPECS scholarship, athletes keen on receiving the program will be assessed based on their training commitment. Their performance will be benchmarked against the standards of SEA Games medalists. One senior athlete says this will give younger athletes an edge.
I think having this support, especially like physios and all this, will definitely help prepare themselves, their bodies, their mind better for the future as well, so that they are get used to the rigors of the trainings that is needed to compete at the world's best, and definitely the experience from having the fundings and all to compete as much as all the other people around the world.
National sports associations welcome the program, saying it will pave the way for the development of younger athletes and help build a strong pipeline of talent.
For the young athletes, we know that behind them comes a very big village to support them, whether it's their parents, their friends, their coaches, their teachers, the whole ecosystem around them. And I think this SPECS Potential program really adds to that. It shows them that there's a national commitment to their success, to their growth, and it really provides that national push to allow our young athletes to grow and transition earlier into some of these competitions.
Application for SPECS Potential opens on 1st September and will run for 2 months.
Some parents whose children attend a preschool in Woodlands were not aware that a teacher there was under investigation for suspected ill treatment of a child. This after police say they have arrested a 33-year-old woman following reports of videos showing a teacher mishandling young children. The woman, who has since been dismissed, will be charged in court tomorrow.
All along, I actually had quite a positive view on the school because I've sent my kids here for a few years, and then there's never been like much of an issue. So I was quite shocked to hear yesterday. And then at first, I didn't believe that it was this outlet. I thought it was another outlet.
Some other parents whose children came under the care of the teacher say they received a letter through the parents' portal informing them of the incident. Videos circulating online show the woman at a Kinderland preschool in Woodlands forcing children to drink water and hitting one with a book. The videos were apparently taken by an intern. The Early Childhood Development Agency says it's looking into the matter. Now, in a statement, the agency says strict actions will be taken if the allegations are proven true, and that they are working closely with the centres for the safety and well-being of students. In the meantime, all preschool operators are instructed to provide close guidance and support to teachers in classroom management. Lawyer and opposition politician Lim Tian has sought for his trial to be adjourned after dismissing his counsel. He also cites an alleged delay in the prosecution handing over documents and that he did not have time to go through the evidence because of his involvement in Mr. Tan Kin Lian's presidential campaign. The move has been described by the prosecution as a delay tactic. Lim has been granted a day to seek new legal representation. He faces multiple charges, but the ones set for trial today were for acting as a lawyer between April and June 2021, while he was unauthorized to do so. Lim has been found guilty of gross improper conduct over the handling of $30,000 belonging to a former client. Lim is Mr. Tan's seconder in the former NTUC Income Chief's bid to become President of Singapore. Rising rents, difficulty attracting new customers, challenges in getting younger people interested in taking over. Now, these are just some of the worries faced by heritage trades in the Kampong Glam area. Rebecca Mateo takes a look at how some of these businesses are adapting in order to survive.
Not all embroidery are suitable on all fabrics, okay? Because when you do embroidery, you need a little bit of tension for the fabric, and then when they do...
Ratiana is imparting some tricks of the trade to Putri, and 10 others are also learning from this kabaya maker who has been around for decades. But for Ratiana, she's worried that not many will turn their skill into a business, and the trade will fade away. She says only 20% eventually go on to start their own business in kabaya making.
It's not only about cutting or sewing, it's also the skill of how you have to attend to your customers. These are also a very important skill. How you want to run the business, how you want to manage which amount of money go to where, how to reinvest. Everything comes in hand, and it does take time.
Heritage trades are also finding it hard to stay afloat given rising rents. For Ratiana, she's had to find ways to attract new and younger customers, such as putting a modern spin to kabayas. But even targeting new customers will not help some heritage businesses ease the pressure of rising rents. One of the oldest nasi padang stalls in Kampong Glam is moving out of its current stall along North Breach Road. Its rent has doubled to some $17,000 per month.
Somehow the rental rates is packed to the price of the property that they purchase, right? I've seen a lot of businesses in Kampong Glam coming in and closing after a year and two because they try to run the business, but I think at the end of the day, it's the rent that is affecting the business.
The century-old traditional food stall is moving to another place nearby with a lower rent. ERA Realty says the rising rents could be due to more foreigners investing in shop houses as they do not need to pay additional buyer's stamp duties on them. One Kampong Glam, a community organization, says rising rent is not unique to businesses there, and they are working with government agencies to find other ways to help.
It's sad to hear that whatever they're making, it all goes back to the rent, which is not really a good thing to hear. But the reality is like that. So for me, we can't do much about all these things here. Yeah, we hope the government agencies are also really working hard to try to find a way.
In the works are events and activities that create buzz in order to bring in the crowds. At the same time, businesses are looking at innovative ways to stay relevant, such as using social media to expand their reach.
And that's news tonight. A repeat telecast of the Presidential Forum is up next. Do join us again tomorrow and have a good night.
This program is available on demand for free.